Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchtime series, proudly powered by Leadership by Design.co, where we aim to add value to people's lives. You can listen to us live every Wednesday and Thursday at lunchtime on ebizradio.com, where we talk everything leadership, coaching, and marketing. And you can listen to the Lunchtime series on all your major podcast channels today. In today's marketing and leadership segment, we've got marketing and communications expert and co-host Craig Pagely. How are you doing, Craig?
Kevin, I'm great. Thank you. Yeah, God, I actually can't believe it that we're now officially in the second half of 2023.
I'm part of me is like, oh my God. And part of me is like, oh, this is so cool. We're like, we're heading towards Christmas. But yeah, I don't know about you, but like I find this winter to be a little bit colder than it usually is. I don't know what it is, but maybe it's just me.
No, I agree with you. You know, I've been in the studio that I'm in now for 4 years, 3 years, 4 years. And I promise you, I have felt colder this year than I have previously.
Yeah, it's like the seasons are, something has changed about the winter.
Yeah.
I feel it feels colder to me. But Craig, what before we carry on giving people the weather, at least the weather report, why don't you jump back into last week and just remind us about last week's conversations on what we were chatting about?
Yeah, Kevin, thanks. So the reminder points are from the PwC.com's Executive Leadership Hub report that I came across. The report was titled, What's Important to CMOs in 2023? 6 Topics Shaping the Marketing Agenda. And the report presents each topic with a why it matters conclusion for the topic in question. So a really nice, simple approach, key statement, why it matters. Starting with topic 1, personalize to aid customer loyalty. So here we learn the following. Now, as choices for products and service proliferate, Kevin, marketing leaders should consider finding new ways to create more immersive, tech-enabled, personalized experiences that can deliver targeted preferences. The why it matters points, well, long-term growth and loyalty hinge on balancing values with capabilities. And this is great because this approach can actually be adopted in the business-to-business relationship as well. Moving to topic 2, tailored tech investments for results. We learn the following. Technology underpins every aspect of marketing today, absolutely. The right marketing technologies and advertising tech investments can actually enhance customer experience, generate predictive analytics, increase output, and actually galvanize business growth. The why it matter point is that the solution is not always more technology. Rather, CMOs should work to simplify their tech roster, reconcile process gaps, and better connect existing systems to glean insights across all of the platforms. Moving to topic 3, mobilize modern marketing, we learn the following. CMOs have spent the last 2 or 3 years leading their teams through an extremely turbulent time. It is, however, time for CMOs to actually reaffirm the strategic roles as business partners in the C-suite. And that's an important point to remember because we're going to pick up on this later in the conversation. The why it matters point is, as marketers continue to evolve, it is transformed from an enabler into an actual business driver of growth, with CMOs being faced with the challenge of building a foundation of customer centricity, irrespective of market conditions. Topic 4 is around fulfill brand purpose, and we learn the following here. CMOs at the forefront of shaping communications, an authentic narrative that requires, let me try that again. Communicating an authentic narrative that highlights sustainability and purpose, including the company's ESG strategy, a topic we've covered quite well. The why it matters point here is that CMOs who are in direct touch with customers far more than their C-suite peers are actually charged with protecting and expanding their trust, Kevin. Moving to topic 5, fuel growth with proactive pricing, we learn the following. By integrating marketing metrics with CRM and financial systems, CMOs can actually develop a proactive pricing model for revenue growth management, trade promotions, and a hell of a lot more. And the why it matters point here, Kevin, is that CEOs need to shape product demand from gathering the likes of trade promo data to using advanced revenue management tools and obviously great in-depth data analysis. And then the final reminder point here is topic 6, activate insights with analytics. We learn the following. Finding ways to translate that knowledge via analytics into insights for the entire organization affords CMOs the authority to contribute to strategy decisions. Again, another point to remember for our conversation later. The why it matters moment here, Kevin, is that CMOs also need the right metrics to confirm that they're actually delivering business relevant insights that allow the company to innovate and grow, and by delivering a targeted, personalized, differentiated customer experience. And those are the key takeaway points or reminder points from last week, Kevin.
Fantastic. Guys, if you want to check that out, you can check it out on YouTube or your major podcast channels. And that's what's important to CMOs in 2023. Craig, so with that said, what are we going to be just discussing today?
So, Kevin, moving from topics that sort of dictate the marketing agenda for CMOs, I actually want to expand on the conversation, but look at it from a slightly different angle. This being the role that CMOs can and should actually play in the boardroom. And as you heard from 6 of those reminder points last week, 2 of them make very specific reference of the importance of CMOs in the executive suite. And it's a topic that has been addressed and revisited a number of times the past few years, and one that is obviously going to prevail for many years to come, especially as AI begins to really influence the impact, not just on marketing and advertising, but actually business as a whole, Kevin.
Craig, and I think what's important from having last week's conversation, I think I mentioned last week that you get the idea that marketers they just have a bunch of fun, right?
Yeah, don't we wish?
Essentially, but there's a whole bunch of responsibility that goes with it, and I think a certain criteria and skill that especially as a chief marketing officer needs in that role. So I'm interested to hear how this plays out further.
Yeah, great, Kevin. Thanks. So the article I want to reference in this regard is titled "Want to Grow Your Brand? Put Your CMO in Your Boardroom." Written by Margot J., a former Forbes Council member and CEO of 365 Integrated, which is a global brand and strategy firm. And to quote, "They work to drive sales and profit through a foundation rooted in higher purpose." And I like that. The article was published to Forbes.com on the 25th of Jan, 2022, just over a year ago. The article opens with a following reality check, Kevin, where it says that how many of us routinely see the CMO or other senior marketing executives in the boardroom? Big question, that. And not just presenting to the board or getting grilled by them before leaving. I'm talking about the CMO actually sitting as part of the board committee. I can count on one hand the number of times I've seen this. I bet the answer is similar for most marketers. It baffles me because the CMO is the one person driving growth from a deeper understanding of the customer. So why aren't there more CMOs in the boardroom? This very statement is the reason I want to actually expand on the topic of last week by getting under the skin of this ever-recurring question. Yeah. So what does the article teach us? The article is structured around 3 key themes, Kevin, and one is that what the CMO can actually bring to the boardroom. The second year is about why bringing the CMO in actually makes sense. And then the third point it picks up on is actually what's holding us back.
Great. I mean, mentioning it, and hearing it like that, I've always assumed that it's a no-brainer that the CMO should be in the boardroom. Like, as CFO has to be in the boardroom. You're kind of going.
Yes, absolutely. CMOs, it's a cyclical thing. It really is. So firstly, in some segments and market types around the world, CMOs are well entrenched in the organizations. The likes of Unilever and organizations like that, P&G, well entrenched because the breadth and diversity of the products that sit within the marketing suite, it really needs that strong representation in the boardroom, and Mark Pritchard being one of those. On the other hand, markets have, the changes in dynamics around markets, the introduction of digital and technology and things like that. Some boards have seen that as technology has evolved, the role of the CMO has become less important at the board level, and then it has a flip in another cycle again. So we're constantly dealing with this evolution of not just CMOs but anybody's relevance in a board position. But I want to start with what the CMO can bring to the boardroom, Kevin, and we learn the following. Sales and marketing team members are the people closest to any company's customers. Absolutely. They interact with customers and they hear about changing shopping behavior. They stay close to the end consumer through ongoing research and analysis, delivering data-driven campaigns and staying ahead of the emerging trends. So with this in mind, it goes without saying that the CMO is actually the pulse of the consumer, understanding their needs and acting as the voice of the consumer in any boardroom or board level discussion. And if you just look at the spectrum of what they have to deal with, that in itself is a proof point as to why they have to be there. So the next point here is why bringing the CMO in makes sense. And we learn the following. The CMO is in charge of the company's brand, strategizing about how to reach customers, about the messaging, looking at the brand vision and saying, this is how we execute. So with these responsibilities and functions in place, why are CMOs not more involved in discussions about where the brand is actually going? The key point to note here, Kevin, is that boards are typically filled with operations and finance people who, exactly as you mentioned earlier, make decisions related to the brand. This can then cause them to vote subjectively without the actual depth of skill or insights to make the right decision, which in turn impacts on consumers. So, one therefore has to ask that if you're going to put a CMO in charge of your brand and your consumer, why are you leaving them out of key decision making? Why are you actually not asking for the insights here? And the only way to do that is to have them permanently present as board representatives. The final point in this article is the statement about what's holding us back. And we learned the following here. One of the reasons why we don't see more CMOs in the boardroom has to do with how a lot of companies actually see marketing, Kevin. And as we know, many see marketing as a cost center, which is where the first cuts are made to the budget. We also know that most companies invest during good times, but dial back extensively during lean times, the opposite of what they actually should be doing. Companies don't often see marketing as the consumer engine to the brand. They rather see sales as the engine. And in these instances, Kevin, it's easy to see a CMO as less important than some other decision makers in the business. The final statement from the article is worth remembering, and it notes this. All decisions internally and externally have implications on how the consumer is cared for. Does it therefore make sense that the person with the best understanding of your brand is out in the cold as you make internal decisions that will impact on the brand?
Yeah, what's interesting, I think we've had the conversation where, from a marketing perspective, that just after COVID, we had a conversation around certain brands were amping up their actual marketing spend.
Yes.
And other people were kind of, cutting their marketing spend. But those who amped it up obviously stayed more relevant and stayed in people's faces. But that conversation where, I don't know what brand it was and where we had the conversation, I think it was with us, where the restaurant chain went and put their restaurant in the shopping mall's parking lot, and they actually changed their location so that you could actually become a drive-through.
Yes.
Kind of a restaurant, and suddenly, just having that strategic move, because they know that they obviously were scared of contact. But I mean, the fact that they had that ability, that strategic thinking on, well, how do we still serve people? And I think, just to your point now, marketers do specifically, and I'm assuming that's why they're in marketing. And I look at you and I look at your brain, there's things that you're paying attention to that people don't generally just think of, right? People who aren't entrenched in marketing and what people need, it's not that obvious to us. But people who are doing it, it's how do we then get into into your customers' hands or into your customers' faces? And how do you do it actively? So I think
it becomes intuitive as well. When you're in it is intuition, and it's this constant, learn, apply, relearn, and that's the importance.
And there's no certainty in it. It's constantly evolving. It's constantly 100%. Changing. Yeah. So if you're not, and I look at, with my efforts with my business, is when I'm not actively in front of a client or doing work, I spend time on marketing. I create content and I write content and I create video, and there's always some kind of marketing additional thing that I'm doing, and still trying to find a marketing company to work with, and so like for me, this it makes so much more sense when you have the CMO in your business, like, right there in the forefront. But I mean, Craig, on how do CMOs then adapt to the boardroom role or position when they're there?
Yeah, Kevin. Yeah. So quickly, just before jumping into answering that, I think you hit on something really great. Is the constant evolution of business, and for me, on the basis of that, I genuinely believe that you'll see a very different framework within boards and very different strategic relationships moving forward. The chief marketing officer, the chief information officer, and the chief technology officer really need to become an incredibly integrated linkage, because as AI expands and influences businesses more and more, as I mentioned in the opening, the connection between how to understand the data and insights and work with the information on one end, to how to leverage technology capabilities on the other end, to understanding the consumer and the consumer's needs at the other end of the triangle. And those three working together really is a critically important part for any successful marketing organization. Anyway, so yes, how do CMOs adapt to boardroom roles or positions? Well, with difficulty, I'd say, Kevin. And the article titled, "I beg your pardon, why CMOs need to learn the language of the boardroom," provides a brief overview of this topic. And the article was written by Tom West and published to marketingbeat.co.uk on the 2nd of June this year. So, very current piece of thinking. The article addresses some of the points we covered recently in the Release Data and Marketing Association's CMO Effectiveness Toolkit. So, Kevin, the toolkit is focused on two key areas. Firstly, it's structured to help marketers actually identify the best and appropriate metrics for their business. And secondly, it looks to equip them with the right tools and language to actually prove the marketing effectiveness to executives. So, really important piece for the marketing community. And the article opens with the following paragraph. It states that marketers and boardrooms have never operated in perfect harmony. And while businesses continue to view marketing as a sunken cost rather than a valuable investment, will continue. The article was produced on the back of some research which was carried out across a number of Fortune 500 companies. And these companies found that the tenure of the average CEO is currently only half that of the average CEO. So CMO's tenure, half that of CEO's tenure, pointing to an increasingly, quote, dichotomy between the marketing department and boardrooms. And with boardrooms putting even more and more pressure on marketers to do more and more with less, Kevin, it really is crucial that both sides of the table actually are able to come together and communicate a lot more effectively. And this means that a lot more precise bespoke measurement is important for marketers that actually want to navigate the complexities of the boardroom. In other words, executives really need to be spoken to in a language that they understand. And then picking up again on the two key areas that I mentioned in the toolkits, from tooling up CMOs for the boardroom battle, aims to help marketers actually identify the best and most appropriate metrics for their business. And secondly, it looks to actually enable them with the right tools and language to actually prove that they understand the metrics that matter or the marketing effectiveness to executives.
Great. So, I mean, what are some of the tips that we can learn from CMOs who are in the boardroom?
Kevin, yeah, a short, really cool, short, concise article that I came across that says why CMOs should mobilize the board directors to support growth provides a bit of an overview to the question. The article was published to Deloitte.com, again, one of my favorite content sources, and covers key findings from a survey of CMOs by the CMO Council in collaboration with Deloitte. And the key takeout is that many growth-driving CMOs are actually working to rally corporate leadership around the customer. And that's a really good point. And if the executive board can enable that, you'll see a lot more support coming around a customer than just that being delivered through the CMO. The paragraph titled "Learning from Successful CMOs" opens as follows. The chief marketers with a long-term mindset increasingly are advancing the growth agenda by tapping into a largely unmined corporate power center vis-a-vis the board of directors. A recent survey of chief marketers by the CMO Council in collaboration with Deloitte established actually that over 33% of emerging group of growth-driven or growth-driving marketers see the board as a key ally and a champion of their growth strategy. And the initiative sought to investigate and analyze exactly how CMOs are actually embracing their roles in leading this particular growth agenda, Kevin. And among the top skills that have helped growing a growth-driven CMO shape and evolve the agenda includes the likes of data and intelligence analysis, market insights knowledge capability, and developing a holistic view of customer experience, according to the survey. CMOs appear to have a clear path to evaluating the growth agenda through their board of directors, with many chief marketers still looking to the top levels of a corporate leadership to support these efforts here. What's interesting, and I know you like some stats, is that 71% of marketers surveyed view the president or CEO as their primary ally, for instance, while 56% hold the head of sales in similar regard. More than 33% of CMOs actually view the board as a champion of growth strategy development, which is a great opportunity for directors to apply their oversight roles to this growth-oriented set of initiatives that the CMOs are bringing to the fore. CMOs have not always had comparable roles with the board of directors, and unlike the other C counterparts, as you mentioned, CFOs who serve as formal liaisons to audit committees. Board members may not have deep experience or expertise in marketing, and as a result, there may not always be this shared level of connectedness and fluency between the CMO and other directors on the likes of social media strategies, digital transformation, or other marketing-related activities and endeavors. That said, though, Kevin, CMOs can still gather and garner that support for growth by strategically contributing to the board's key priorities. And one way to do this is to use and leverage the brand for growth and collaborating with directors by helping them understand how marketing initiatives actually fuel and feed the growth agenda of the organization.
Greg, I find it interesting with the stats that you're sharing that only 71% of marketers surveyed that they find the CEO as their primary ally.
Which is concerning.
It is concerning because I'm thinking, if my brand, when my brand gets to that point where it's grown to the degree of having a CMO, for example, everything we've spoken about in this show quite specifically speaks about the messaging, the content, how your brand is delivered, how it is shared, how it is received, why it's received, why are you saying it, why, this
why you're actually in business.
There's such a massive responsibility on what that messaging going out to your platform says about that brand, that the CEO and the CMO should be speaking the same language, like literally. In my head.
100% correct. And that applies to both internal message and delivery, to external message and delivery. And it is therefore another proof point that the board has to be united in being able to really talk the same language and drive the same narrative around the brand and that growth strategy.
Yeah, so to me, that's quite surprising that if you look at those stats that they are so low, because if you really, and I suppose you can look at really good brands who do this really well. I think of Nando's. I would love to like Nando's from their perspective and how they market and how they that relationship with their CMO and CEO and CFO, and see how well they do, because from a marketing perspective they hit it like nail on the head every single time.
What's interesting for me though was the 56% that aligned with sales executives, and one of the phrases that I use a lot is marketing is the sales enabler.
Yeah.
And, with that premise understood and in place, you would actually expect a lot more than 56% aligning with sales heads as their allies as well. So yeah, some concern, one would say at times.
Yeah.
But Kevin, there's a really interesting LinkedIn post that I came across, as part of this answer to your question as well, and this it really stood out for me. Dated 12th of May 2022, the article was published initially in Adweek, and it's titled "Are We Ready for More CMOs in the Boardroom?" The article was written by Margaret Molly, Global Chief Marketing Officer and Brand and Business Builder. The article opens with the following paragraph. Chief marketers, by any measure, or at least chief marketing officers, by any measure, are crucial to the world of business. They map business futures. They look at the meaning behind the numbers to reveal how customers identify, perceive, and search for value, connecting the dots between user experience and fiscal performance. So why aren't more of them in the boardroom? Another proof point of the concern that CMOs are not affected, Kevin. But the following three paragraphs, and it's a bit of a read though, they provide sufficient context to the benefits that CMOs actually bring to the boardroom. So let me quickly take you through these. So CMOs know audience, absolutely. What drives them to engage and what keeps brand messaging from getting through. They understand how to introduce new ideas and technologies over time to produce the greatest benefits to the organization and to consumers. That's valuable for strategy, but their voices are not often heard in the boardroom. This isn't due to failure of imagination or lack of commitment. It isn't an access problem. There are thousands of seats on public boards. Current CMOs hold fewer than 40 of them. That's unfortunate, not just for the CMOs, but for the companies who need their perspective. CMOs help make data-driven corporate policy possible. They identify patterns in how consumers experience brands. They curate those interactions around audience needs. CMOs create solutions long before they're even needed, designing strategies for content, branding, and user experiences that are intuitive, data-driven, and agile. Because CMOs understand user experience, they ask the right questions about strategy in the boardroom. They can help improve the way decisions are made by connecting the abstract of long-term business goals to the tangible real-world impacts on stakeholders. CMOs are problem solvers who can translate the complex, like the expression of brand purpose through digital transformation, into products and services that consumers want. When CMOs are left out the boardroom, their insights and the business risks and opportunities that the experience might identify are lost. CMOs translate business purpose into consumer value. Obsession becomes a catalyst for growth, and digital transformation becomes a permanent state. And what a perfect reference to embed the importance of CMOs on any board, Kevin.
Absolutely, Greg. So, Greg, as we end today's show, what are the key takeaway points for the show that we can share with the listeners?
Kevin, I read a report titled "Marketing's Role in the Boardroom," which spoke volumes to me, and it really jumped out to me, particularly when I realized that the report was published as long ago as 2002. And while many industries, businesses, and roles actually change on a regular basis, the tenets for CMO representation on the board do remain constant in many instances, even through these rapid technology and digital advancements, Kevin. So, excuse me. Published by Drift, G2, and Heinz Marketing, the report notes that for CMOs or any marketing leader to effectively and communicate marketing success to their leadership team, there are three core areas or tenets that must be strengthened first. And these are noted as follows. So the first one, and this you'll totally understand because we've spoken about this before, clear communication, gain stakeholders buy-in and trust. The second being meaningful data to measure, track, and report what's needed most to move the needle. And the third is justified priorities to validate the decisions and actually instill confidence in your approach. So I just want to cover each of the three quickly for our takeaway today, Kevin. So tenet one is communication. So to gain stakeholder buy-in, CMOs must be able to clearly, efficiently, and effectively communicates to their leadership teams not only what they're doing, but also the role that the actions play in the larger scope of the business strategy. We also note that communication is crucial excuse me, to ensure that every participant, from board member to CEO to director or manager, actually understands what their role is in the greater sales and marketing program, and actually how they fit into the larger strategy structures of the organization. And it's important to note that the three primary stakeholders who CMOs must align with, exactly as we just mentioned, is the CEO, the executive board, and sales leadership. And in terms of the CEO and executive board, Kevin, we note that the number one challenge that CMOs face when it comes to achieving that alignment with their CEO board is poor communication, causing these huge challenges down the road, which actually lead to the creation of programs that aren't aligned in any way with the business or revenue objectives. CMOs have a lot to do when it comes to data and analytics, and many data systems and reporting capabilities actually are structured and live in silos, which lead to a hell of a lot of fragmented reporting and actually nobody having a full picture view of the organization. And in a day and age, Kevin, where marketing is expected to deliver more, there are a lot of shortcomings that cannot be overlooked. Looking at the sales leadership points, we note that both marketing and sales teams actually work towards the same revenue goal. It's obvious. When they work in silos, it's easy to actually miss those crucial pieces of information that could actually influence a future sale. And whether it's how it leads are passed on, or what qualifies a lead from one stage to another, or what actual accounts are being targeted and by who, misalignment not only impacts on the bottom line, it can actually have huge negative impact on the company morale and employee retention rates. Tenet 2 of the 3 is data. Marketers are no longer just responsible for what happens at the top of the funnel. And in order to actually move that needle, CMOs really need to know what those metrics are that they need to measure, not just by having metrics, but actually what the metrics are that they need to measure, how they plan on tracking those metrics, and actually what's needed most to move that needle on company goals. CMOs need to determine what's to report on. Really important point this. Gain a clear understanding of what metrics you need to report on in terms of marketing, sales, and leadership, and how you report on them. Align your metrics of success to the different stages of the buyer journey and sales process, so you know what you need to track when and where in that process. Define the owners of each of the success metrics, as well as their responsibilities to generate those metrics, to drive accountability and responsibility through the pipeline, and to make it easier to present your data to CEO and board, identifying what metrics are most important for them to see first and foremost. And Kevin, the last tenet is justify priorities. So to justify the priorities, CMOs have to utilize a wide variety of sources, data points, and references, whether it be the likes of proprietary data that organization owns, competitor data, or third-party research buying in data, utilizing the learnings of the previous tenets to gain stakeholder buy-in, streamline communication, agree on and define those metrics of success, and further align with sales. CMOs can more easily justify their priorities, validate their decisions, and instill that confidence in the executive team, Kevin. And as you can see, the references may be a few years old, but fundamentally, they remain the same for CMO representation on the board of companies that they represent today. And those are the key takeaway points, Kevin.
Fantastic, Craig. Thank you so much. I just turned off my camera because of the signal. So, Craig, fascinating conversation. I absolutely love that. And guys, I think that if you know of the CMO who should be in the boardroom, or you know of someone who might need to know this information, definitely share it with them, because I think it's a very important conversation to have. And I think lots of companies, especially in the world that we live in today, really need to come up with the best or better strategies to support them. But Craig, I've got a nice quote for you here, and I'm sure you're going to like this. Good marketing makes the company look smart. Great marketing makes the customer feel smart. And that's from Joe Chernov.
That's fantastic. That's really, really great. Yes. And it's about making the customer feel safe. And when the CMO has the right representation and the board and the business buys in to the activities and growth strategies, believe me, the products and services will match the needs of the customer, and the customer will feel smart.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
I love it. Craig, thank you so much, guys. Catch it on YouTube or any major podcast channels. And that's the Lunchtime series every Wednesday and Thursday on ebizradio.com. Craig, I'll see you soon and have a great week.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. You too.
Chat soon. Cheers for now. Bye.